Why plain text emails as opposed to a pretty little razzle dazzled HTML email? Well, the first reason is because with an HTML email, sometimes all of those graphics and things like that will actually cause the email to take too long to load. Okay, so this is especially true if you have any foreign, and when I say foreign, meaning if you are a US based company or brand and you are targeting people outside of the US. So if that's your case, if that's your story, and you're sending HTML emails to people that are outside of the United States, and if they have a slower connection to Wi Fi, guess what? When you're putting all those really cute and pretty images and graphics in that HTML email, it's going to actually take time for that email to load. And what happens, guys? Our attention span is so short in this day and age. So if something's taking too long to load, people abandon ship. And you don't want that to happen, right? That's the whole point of email marketing. You want folks to tap in and, do whatever it is that your call to action tells them to do. So that's the first point. Why you should not use HTML. And again, my only exception is if you are an e-com store, and I'll explain why at the end. But it could take more time to load that email if the person who is on the receiving end of it has a slower internet connection. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing, with that being said, an HTML email can be a little more challenging on those who are visually impaired. Now, I do understand that you can leverage alt text and things like that. And for those of you who are unaware, alt text is essentially the text that you put behind images so that those who have a visual impairment, rather, they are able to still know exactly what is happening, right? So the software that reads what is on the screen for those who are visually impaired, it will actually read that alt text so that way it gives the individual context. They know what is happening. And so, unfortunately, what happens is a lot of brands forget to add copy in that alt text. So, guess what? If your email is loading and it is received by someone who has a visual impairment, there's a huge chance that they're going to get a little confused or a little lost because the software is not going to be able to let them know, oh, there is a banner with the image of a dog, a smiling dog at the top. They're not going to know what's going on. It is very important that you make sure that you use alt text if you do decide to use HTML emails, because in the event that someone has a slower connection and they also have a visual impairment, you want them to still be able to know what's going on. Okay, so here's another reason why I prefer plain text over HTML. And again, the only exception is with e commerce. So, another reason why is because oftentimes HTML emails, from my personal experience and observation, land in the promotions tab. So, as I've shared previously when I've done videos about how to avoid the spam and promotions folders, I will tell you, and I'll just kind of share this as a reminder, there is no way that I can tell you a guaranteed way to avoid the spam and promotions folders. The reason why is because, of course, if Google and all of the other free inbox tools told us what would keep people out of, or brands out of, spam and promotions, well, then the spammers and the fishers and all these other scammers would also know how to stay out of spam and promotions. And trust me, if you're anything like me, that spam folder gets pretty full, and it's full of nonsense, scams, and phishing schemes and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so no one knows exactly how these free inbox tools, like a Gmail, for example, actually decide what emails are worthy of landing in the primary inbox versus the promotions folder, for example, or the spam folder. So, with that being said, I will say from my own personal observation and experience, I have noticed that HTML emails oftentimes land in the promotions folder. That may be a totally different experience for another email marketer, but from my observation and experience, that is the case. Okay, so that's another reason why I tend to lean more into the plain text space, is because, plain text, again, generally speaking, does not land in the promotions folder and it does not land in the spam folder. Now, with that being said, I do want to switch over and talk about e-commerce stores and why do I make this exception to my own rule as it relates to e-commerce stores. So, if you are an e-commerce business owner, then I will say that HTML makes a lot of sense for you. Why do I feel that way? Well, I feel that way because oftentimes you have a catalog of products, right? And so you want people to see your product. It's very important for them to be able to see it. Now, sure, you could use very descriptive words to, encourage people to click on a link to your website and look at the products. And honestly, I do think as an e commerce store owner, you should consider implementing both plain text and HTML emails. Why am I suggesting this? So that you can split test and see which one of those emails gets the highest open rate, the highest click through rate, and most importantly, the highest conversion rate. Okay, so if you're an e commerce store, I would strongly advise you to split test this. But in my personal opinion, I do think that HTML works well for e commerce store owners because you are able to showcase your catalog of products in that particular email. There is a way that you can, of course, share images and things like that in a plain text email. And so, again, as I mentioned, mixing it up a little bit, you should occasionally put, if you have one featured item, for example, that you want to highlight, perhaps there's a sale going on for the next 24 hours, then yes, I think you should include an image, one image of that particular product in a plain text email and see how that performs up against an HTML email that is promoting the same product, but perhaps in a more pretty or beautified way, okay, for lack of better words. So that is my exception for my e commerce business owners. I'm not 100% against HTML for you, but for everyone else, especially service based business owners, listen, plain text is the way to go. Now, why am I so like team plain text? Well, the reason why I'm team plain text is because, as I mentioned earlier with HTML, if you are marketing to people that are outside of the United States, for example, and perhaps they have a slower connection, and let's be real, there are certain places in the United States that have very poor connection as well. So let me make sure I clarify here that, it's not just the United States that has powerful internet connections and everybody else has a slower connection. Certainly not the case. I've been to several cities in the United States, some of them metropolitan cities, where the actual internet connection is very slow. So if your contacts are hit with a slow internet connection and you are sending a plain text email, guess what? There's not much to load, right? We're talking about text. So long as their email works, right? So long as they can actually access email, they should be able to read your plain text email because it's mostly text. So that's one huge advantage, in my opinion, to sending plain text emails. With that being said, my favorite reason why plain text email is my preferred type of email to send is because it's familiar. When your friends and when your family and when your colleagues and when your contacts who are on your list are getting emails from people that they know, they're not getting beautified HTML, razzle dazzled emails, right? They're getting a little basic plain text email telling whatever it is that they need to tell, and that's it. And so that's why I like plain text because it's familiar. It is familiar. And guess what? When you are wanting folks to open up your emails, you want to definitely make this feel warm. Okay, you're building a rapport with someone. I always say that with email marketing, it is, in my opinion, it's a one-to-one conversation. It's not a one-to-many. At least, if you're sending emails and you're treating it like a one-to-many situation, I would advise you to have a conversation with me because that is actually not the way email should be. Email is a two-way channel, unlike, doing an ad on Facebook and Instagram where it's very clear it's one-to-many. Or, of course, a television commercial, which is another example of a one-to-many. Email is a one-to-one. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation that you're having with someone in their space, right? Their space being their inbox. And so because of that, you want to appear familiar. You want to appear as someone who they can trust. And that's why I feel plain text delivers that feel better than HTML does. Now, as it relates to, those who may have a visual impairment. This is another advantage with plain text email, right? Because it's all text. So when that software is reading to that individual what that communication says, they don't have a bunch of hiccups. The software doesn't have to try to explain what this image is at the top of this email, and hopefully it can do that, again assuming that you don't forget to add the alt text, you know, all these complications and things like that. No, plain text is able to very quickly and simply read what is going on in the email. And then, last but not least, as I just said a moment ago, when it comes to deliverability, again, from my personal experience and observation as someone who's been in this industry now for 12 years, as a professional email marketer, and 20 years now as a copywriter, as a professional copywriter, I will tell you personally that plain text emails, the odds of them landing in the promotions tab, from my personal experience, I don't see it often. I really don't. And to be honest, I think a lot of that ties back into what I just shared in terms of, that familiarity, right? Like, people want to feel connected. And plain text is the way to do it, because that's how we communicate with each other, with our friends and family and our colleagues. We're not sending beautified HTML emails. We're just sending a plain text email. So, with that being said, I just realized I actually did not introduce myself. So, if you're still here, thank you. My name is Maria Lloyd. I am the owner of a marketing firm named Opens Clicks Cash, and I am also the author of a book titled Words Are Wealth. I'm on a personal mission to help as many small business owners as possible reach their first 6 figures in business. If that mission resonates with you, I want to invite you to come along with me on this journey by simply liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and making sure that you hit that notification bell, so that way you'll know when my team and I post new content. So again, if you're still here, I just want to thank you for being here. I hope that you've subscribed already. And always remember, content is currency, words are wealth. And don't forget to drop me a comment and let me know, what is your favorite type of email? Is it HTML? Is it plain text? And why? So I'll be reading those comments. Thanks so much, and peace. Pampa me on,